I first want to give you a step that you can take when you are following up. So to avoid any common like weird lags you have in communication where you're not in contact, what you want to do is from the very first interaction, always leave the conversation off with next steps. So I never would leave a conversation with a client with something along the lines of, well, you let me know when you're ready. They're not hiring us to just be there to facilitate a transaction and open a door. Okay. They're hiring us to provide guidance through the entire homeownership journey. I know what the next step is. I know when they need to be reaching out to me. So I need to clearly explain that to them. So along those veins, like, don't ever leave yourself in a situation to where getting back in touch is awkward. You really need to leave the conversation with clear next steps so that you have something to pick up off of, right? So instead of saying, hey, just checking in, you're saying, hey, last we spoke, this is where we were. And that's going to be my first swap for you. Okay. And again, I go so far into detail on this no-fail follow-up guide because like it's an actual conversation that you need to learn how to have. I'm going to give you the quick tip because you can start doing this today. And in fact, I challenge you to go in through your CRM or go in through your email and find somebody that you have kind of maybe not dropped the ball with, but haven't spoken to in a couple of weeks. And this is what you're going to do. Your first swap is for just checking in. So you might be in those situations where you're like, oh, I'm just checking in. How are things? And you're kind of like beating around the bush because you don't want to ask the question that you know you need to ask, which is, are we buying a house or not? Right? Are you selling your house or not? You're kind of wasting their time. Like, do you have a point or not? And so instead of just checking in, say this: last we spoke, this was the situation. Is that still the case? That's all you need to do to open up a constructive conversation. So let's run through a couple of scenarios on what that sounds like. Let's say this was a client who had just signed a new lease, but they know this is it. This is the last time they're renting, and in the next 12 months, they are going to purchase a home. And you say, cool, I'm going to be here when you're ready. Yikes. And so you need to get back in touch with them. It's been a couple of months, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, they should really probably talk to a lender and make sure they have their financials, like their ducks in a row, so that they are going to be prepared to purchase a home and move in by the time their lease ends. So the script swap is, instead of, hey, just checking in, how's your rental, or whatever you would say, you're going to say, hey, I hope you're doing well. Last we spoke, you had just moved into that rental. Hope you're loving it, by the way. But you were planning on being ready to purchase before your lease ends. Just wanted to check. Is that still the case? Is that still where your mind was at? Open-ended question. It prompts a response. So they're going to come back to you and say something to the effect of yes and or no because. And then you can actually start the conversation to help lead next steps. How much better does that feel instead of just checking in? Another scenario, here's one that I got recently. I'm looking to relocate. Right now we live in Seattle because we moved here. As you know, you sold our house in Phoenix, so we moved to Seattle. And we're thinking of moving back to Phoenix. We need to get some ducks in a row to get there. And so once we have an idea of when this is going to happen, we're going to reach out to you because we need some help buying a house back in Phoenix. That was kind of the conversation. If I were to reach out to them a week after that conversation, instead of saying, hey, just checking in, how's it going in Seattle? I would say, hey, last we spoke, you were planning on getting a sure date on when that relocation might be in effect. Wanted to see if that was still the case or if you have that date in mind. That's it. They are going to share their next steps with you. You have now opened a dialogue to where you can create an action plan for them. Now, if their response at that point was something to the effect of, you know what, we just heard from work. They have approved my relocation. They want me back in the office by September. If that was the case, I would say something to the effect of, way to go, you guys. It's time to get to work. September is going to come up fast. We got a lot to do. Let's hop on a Zoom call so I can provide you with an action plan and we can begin next steps. How good does that feel, right? So that's your first swap. Just checking in. Instead of that, it's last we spoke.